Okay, so you have your audio mixed and balanced and ready to go after having used Audacity for noise reduction and Cakewalk to mix all the audio tracks. And that means you're ready to start video editing. I use Vegas Movie Studio Platinum. I find this program to be powerful and versatile and at a reasonable price range. I think it's $80, the platinum version of it. And if you have to buy it, I think that's money well spent. And of course, you might have a different video editing program, and that's fine. So hopefully some of the things you're about to see will be helpful for whatever program you use. But this is Vegas Movie Studio Platinum. So I'm going to go ahead and open Vegas right here. And what you will see initially is this screen. It's going to ask you what kind of project you want to create. And generally, there's nothing you need to do here. Widescreen is already selected, and that's what's behind that window, so you hit close. So here we are, and what you see most likely is this. You have a preview window where your video will appear here, and you have your tracks, much like Cakewalk or many of these programs. Some of the tracks are going to be video tracks. Some of the tracks are going to be audio tracks. And in this case, we are working with 5 separate videos. So what you want to do first, what you could do first, is make sure you have 5 video tracks and 5 audio tracks. So let's just create those. You right-click here, insert video track, or you could use this shortcut, Control-Shift-Q, which I will do. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So I just created 4 additional video tracks. Now they showed up here on the top. Let's scroll down by holding down Control and just using your scroll wheel. Now let's create 4 additional audio tracks. You can right click and click here, or use Control Q, which is what I will do. So 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So I'm going to change the size of this for now so we can see more tracks at the same time. I'm scrolling up and down, again, holding down Control and using my scroll wheel. So what's going to happen is we're going to drag each of our videos into this program. But before we do that, I find it useful to organize our video and audio tracks. Here's a track for text, which you might use later. Okay, maybe I'm just dragging that up to the top. This picture-in-picture track, I never use it. So let's just delete it. Okay, so now we have the text track. We'll just leave that alone. Is video 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You could rename the tracks if you want to, but again, I don't think it's necessary. So what I'd like to do first is, here's an audio track. I'm going to drag this audio track just underneath a video track. So we have video and audio, and we're going to do the same with the rest. Okay, scrolling down. Here's a preset music track, which we will actually use. I'm going to drag that to the bottom, and I'm going to continue doing what I was doing. So this is an audio track. You can tell because of this little icon. This is a video, and this is an audio track. So I'm just going to drag this here. I'm going to drag this one here. I'm going to drag this one here. And now what we have is video and audio, video and audio, video and audio, video and audio, video and audio. Okay, so now we're going to start dragging our video files. Let's save this project first. I like creating a new folder called, let's say, Vegas. Let's just call it Vegas within your Brahms folder or whatever. And let's call this Hungarian dance V1 version 1, in case you might do more than one version. Save. So that's saved. Again, that's just the project. That's not the actual video. Let's drag those files into the timeline. Now you can drag them into the timeline, which is what I normally do, or into this space here, which is your project media. But once you drag them into the timeline, they're going to appear there anyway. So let's go to our student videos folder. Okay, here are the 4 videos. Start with violin 1. Just drag that into Vegas. And what you see is, before I release the my left button on the mouse, it's showing me where it's going to drop the video and the corresponding audio for this track. And that's why we organize the tracks in this way, so that we have video and audio. Now it's asking me, do you want to set your project video settings to match this media? Say no, and I'll tell you why. It's likely that because you're working with videos from different students, with different cameras, different programs, they might be of all different resolutions or dimensions or whatever. So it's best to just stick to the default of your project, which in this case is 1920 by 1080 at 29 frames per second, or 29 whatever, 0.9. And Vegas will take care of everything else. So just say no when it prompts you to do that. Let's drag violin 2. Okay, so we're going to drag that and drop it right underneath. Right, so again we have video, audio, video, audio. Scroll down a little bit by holding down Control key. Let's drag the viola in. Same thing here, drag the cello in. Scroll down and drag the bass into the mix. Okay, so don't worry about aligning anything just yet. But now we have all 5 students into the Vegas timeline. Now, on the music track, that's where we're going to add our audio that we rendered with Cakewalk in the previous step. All right, so we're going to just go here to Audio Renders, wherever you put your file, Brahms Final Render, and make sure that you're selecting your WAV file and not your Cakewalk project file. Just drag that into the music track. So now all your ingredients are there. Here comes the syncing and editing and adjusting. Okay, I am going to save. Control S. I guess it's busy importing the audio and still importing the bass audio. So sometimes you just have to wait for a little bit. I'm going to maximize while we wait. And I think, I guess we're just going to have to wait here for a moment. I'll cut the video here. Sometimes when the files that the students send are really large, it just takes longer for Vegas to process things. Okay, in this case, it looks like it was the cello video that was taking longer. So anyways, they're all there now. Okay, I already saved by hitting Control S. And now we get to work. All right, so this is just the way I do things, and there are probably better and more efficient ways. But what I like to do now is basically undid what I did before in organizing the tracks, because now I want to be able to see all of the audio tracks together. All right, so I'm going to drag them each to be next to each other. So here's the cello audio track. I'm going to drag that down. Here's the viola audio track. I'm going to drag that down. Here's the violin 2 audio track. I'm going to drag it down. And here's my violin 1, which I'm going to drag down. Okay, so now what you have is all your video tracks on top and all your audio tracks on the bottom, and your music file, which is what you worked on before, at the very bottom. Now, I guess one thing to point out, if it's not clear, is that your video track and the audio track for that video are linked. So when you move one, the other one automatically moves. There might be occasions in which you might want to unlink them if for some reason the audio is not synced with the video of its own track. Sometimes it happens for some reason. So you might want to unlink those, but we don't have to worry about that right now. So now we're going to do something quite similar to what we did with Cakewalk. We're going to line up the tracks by looking at the wavelength first. So that's an initial approximation of the syncing, and then we're gonna go more into detail. All right, so I'm zooming in here. We're gonna start from the bottom with the bass, and we're gonna line them up as best as we can with our audio that we worked on later. Okay, so you can get, if you zoom way in, it actually becomes impossible to tell. So you just need to find the right zoom level, which will allow you to, again, just kind of visually approximate the beginning. It looks like the beginning of the audio track is here. So I'm going to drag, the bass to match that. I'm going to drag the cello to match that. I'm going to drag the viola. She's on the offbeat, so somewhere around there. You can also use the 1, 2, 1 of each student's video if you asked for a count off. And then first violin, we're going to drag that and try to line up the beginning as best we can. Okay, so there we are. They're lined up. I mean, they're at least, in an approximate way. In order to really line up the and sync the videos, you're going to need to do this visually, and you're going to need to do it one track at a time. Okay, and this is how I do it. I'm going to make this a little bigger so it's easier. The priority of the tracks on Vegas, this works very much like Photoshop or any layer-based interface, where the program prioritizes the track that's on top. All right. So what we're seeing here is the first violin video because that's on top. And if I were to mute or hide the track, you'll see suddenly the one underneath it, which is my second violin, right? So at this point, you have two options. You can either work on syncing each track visually before you change the layout of the tracks, meaning the tiles on the screen where you'll see each musician, or you could work on the layout first and the syncing later. It really makes no difference. I tend to, at this point, move on to the layout, so the little tiles, and then I will do a final pass syncing the tracks exactly with the audio. Okay, so we're going to do that now. We're going to start working on the tiles. And now I just noticed here, I never changed this on my screen. So I'm going to change it right now because what we're actually doing is video editing on Vegas. Okay. I really thought I'd changed that before. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Well, let's just keep going. So we're going to work on the tiles. And we're going to forget for now about syncing. All right. So I'm zooming way out, holding down the Alt key and moving my wheel. Okay. So I'm zooming out so that at towards the right of each track, each video track here, you see this little sign, and that will allow you to crop each screen to create the tiles. All right, so let's work. I guess one thing also you need to think about is how many squares or how many tiles you want. Here, of course, we have 5 kids, 5 students. So maybe I will do the 2 violins at the top and the viola, cello, and bass on the bottom. So, figure out how you want to do it. And so you click here, and it shows up this photo, this image, excuse me, of your track. And as you see currently, the video is occupying the whole screen. And we know that we want to put the two violinists on the top. So here you can drag, and what you want to do is drag one of these little square things and just make that bigger, right? And you see here in the back how the size of that video changes as I drag this to make the screen bigger compared to the video. All right, so there are a few options here on this side. I like to make sure that this one, size about center, is not selected. So that allows me to drag the size of this and it just does what I want. I guess I'll show you. If this were selected, then if I drag, it just grows from the center, and I don't want that. So that is not selected, and I just drag this there. All right, now he is occupying 1/4 of the screen, and that's all I need to do for him. All right, so I'm just going to close this, and now I'm going to do the same for the second violin. So click here, event pan crop, right there. All right, I zoom out with my scroll wheel, and I want him to be on the top right. So I'm going to drag this over this way. Okay, and you see there's a grid here that's very, very useful, and that's what I use to just know how big to make this space compared to the video. So now we have both violinists at the top. All right. Now, here comes a bit of a tricky thing for the lower three players. Right, I'm going to open the viola, zoom out, and I know I want her on the bottom left. Right, so I'm going to drag this over there. So now she occupies 1/4 of the screen, or half of the bottom, right? But I want to divide the bottom space into 3 tiles instead of 2. So I need an additional step. And the way that I've learned to do that on Vegas is by adding an additional crop by clicking here, which is plugin chain. Then look for here FX Vegas crop. Say OK. And now this creates this crop video event FX. You can click back here to go to the previous one, your pan crop. I'm going to click back here. And this is really useful. So it allows you to crop how much of the total screen will be visible for that particular video. And there are 2 ways to do it. This is how I do it anyways. You see these 4 yellow dots here? Okay. I just drag this one to about half of the screen. And then I grab this one and I drag it to about 1/3. And now, as I do this, as I'm dragging this, if you notice here, these slides are changing as I drag it, you see? And that's going to be really useful in a moment. So you see how the X crop slide is moving, right? So if I look at the number that changes as I drag this, that number is a percentage, or it's thousands of a unit. So I want to get to about 333, which is just about 1/3 of the screen. Okay, so I'm gonna drop it right there. It doesn't matter if it changes a little bit. Or the top one, you see the X crop slide moving as I drag. So I just get to about half, and then I can come here and actually change the numbers to make it exactly what I want. So let's say I'm going to make this 334, enter, and I'm going to make this one exactly 500, which is exactly half. Okay, so now the viola tile is exactly 1/3 of the bottom of the screen and half of the vertical. So that's done. So I'm going to close that, and now I'm going to work on the cello track. Okay, same process. Now, here's something interesting. If you might notice, and I guess I can see it because I've been doing this a lot, but her video is not exactly 16:9. This is not quite widescreen. What you want to do here, and maybe it's not necessary always, but I just do it all the time, is right click and click match output aspect, which is gonna then, I'll click that, and then the screen thing here change to widescreen, not her video, but the visible part of it. So let's just drag these things to approximate where we want her to be. All right. Again, using the grid, you can approximate and you can drag this. All right. And I'm going to move this one down like that. So you can, just look here and, drag this around to somewhere around there, because we want her to be like centered. All right. And now we do the same we did with the viola. Might not be necessary, but let's do it anyways. So add the crop effects and then drag here this side. And if you look again at the slide where it moves, you can take that into account if you want, but again, not necessary. Drag this one over to about 330-ish, 330. Let's change it to 334. And then drag the top down. And then go back here and just type 500. Okay? So let's take a look. She doesn't look quite centered. So I can go back here and just drag her around a little bit so that she's centered. Now, if you drag too far, then there's going to be a gap between the videos. And I mean, maybe you want gaps, but in this case, we're doing it without gaps. So there she is, right in the middle. Okay, we're going to close that. And now our last musician is our bass player. So we hit pan crop here. And we're going to do the same. Zoom out. We're going to drag this. And his video is widescreen, so it's easier. It matches the grid as you expand it. Now, if you look here, that looks pretty good. So maybe that's all you need to do. There's no reason for the additional crop, also because the cellist video is covering part of the bassist video, and it looks fine. Okay, I guess what I would do here, perhaps, is just drag it horizontally like that, just a tiny bit. That reminds me, down here, you can select if you want to allow the video here to be dragged only horizontally, only vertically, or freely. Okay. So do what you need, and that's done. So now we have all 5 tiles. And the next step will be to, now we really want to sync the each video to our final audio. Okay, so in order to do that, I'm going to scroll down here. I am actually going to mute all audio tracks except for our render that we created earlier. Okay, because now we're only going to do this visually, and we only want to hear the final mix and line the tracks up with that final mix. Okay. At this point also, really, you could just unlink each audio, and you do that by right-clicking, going to group, and going to remove from group. Okay, that unlinks the base audio from the base video, and you can just delete that audio, or you could just also, probably even better, just delete the whole track. Okay. The base video is still there, but the audio that came with the video is gone. We don't really need it. So you can choose again to delete the tracks or just leave them there, you know, if you don't mind just them being there, but just make sure to mute them when you start the final lineup. Okay. So again, all those tracks are muted. Only the your audio render is audible at this point. And we're gonna do this one student or one musician at a time. To do that, you're gonna click on the video track and click the S for solo. And you see up here, we only see him. And you do this so that your computer, I mean, unless you have some kind of crazy, amazing supercomputer, this will help your computer only have to focus on that video and not the others, and it will give you a better preview. Also, I should say that I generally have this preview window, the whole thing, on my secondary screen. You can do that by just clicking here and drag, how is it that I do it? Oh, here, I click here and I just drag this, or wait. How? I mean, you could do this video preview and external monitor, but that's not how I do it. I think maybe I click. Oh yeah, no, that's how I do it. Strange. So just drag here. You see now it's free, and just if you have a second screen, you can just drag it out to your other screen, which is what I just did. But if that'll be just bigger and easier. But if not, you can just leave it there. All right. So, anyways, we're gonna work on him. Let's then you just hit play and just watch him. That actually looks great. I don't think there's anything we need to do there. No micro adjustments. So he's done. So let's hit the violin 2 now. Hit solo so we only see him, and let's play it. So that's probably close enough. It looks to me like his video is maybe 1 or 2 frames behind of the audio mix. So you can get as detailed here as you want. So I'm just zooming way in. Actually, let's do it closer to the beginning of his track so it's easier to visualize. So let's play again. So all you're gonna do now is click here and just drag it a tiny bit like that. And I'm dragging it forward because he was a little behind. And you see here, you'll see a number of how many frames you're moving that in one direction or the other. So let's move it 2 frames forward and let's hit play.
2, 1.
All right, that looks better. So that's done. Do the same for the viola. Click, select solo. All right, and hit play.
2, 1.
Sometimes it looks like her video is also just a tiny bit behind. Sometimes it's just hard to tell, especially if you've been editing for 7 hours, like your brain just.
2, 1.
So I think she's a tiny bit behind. So let's drag her video maybe also 2 frames.
2, 1.
Maybe 1 more frame.
2, 1.
Maybe 1 more.
2, 1.
All right, that looks good. So she's done. Let's move on to the cello. So click or like unselect solo for the viola, select solo for the cello. click just anywhere and play.
1, 2, 1.
Okay, hers also appears to be a tiny, tiny bit behind. So just drag it, let's say 2 frames.
1, 2, 1.
Alright, that's probably good. And then let's do the same with the bass.
1, 2, 1.
Okay, so something interesting might be happening here.
1, 2, 1.
Alright, so it looks like you can see his
1, 2, 1.
that video is behind. You can see his mouth moving as he counts.
1, 2, 1.
And also you can't see his bow, so it's harder to
1, 2, 1.
it's harder to tell. Maybe I shouldn't have deleted his audio track, because then I could go back to that and help
1, 2, 1.
and make it easier to line up. But it looks like we're getting close.
1, 2, 1.
You can see his arm moving. It's pretty close. But then again, also because you cannot see his bow, you can get away with this track not being
1,
totally synced. Alright, that looks good. So now unclick solo here. Now you have all tracks synced and the tiles are made. So what do you do next? You zoom out, and now we want to start thinking about your final product, right? And where you want this to start. So I am going to just click here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. The beginning of my audio render. So I click right underneath it, and you see this line across all of the tracks. Right? So I'm going to click Control A to select all. And then I'm going to split all of them right there by hitting S. All right? Similar to Cakewalk, right? So let's just delete the excess here on the front end of each track. You have to zoom in. Okay, so now all of the tracks start together at the same time. Now you can hit Control A again and just drag them all to hit the very, very beginning of your timeline. Okay. And that's where your video starts. If you want to keep the count in, that's where it would start.
1, 2, 1.
And you see now that the preview here is not smooth, and that's because, you know, it just takes more processing power for the computer to really be able to show you everything, you know, the way it will look when it's rendered. One thing you could do is change the quality of the preview by clicking draft and then auto, and then the resolution is bad, but at least it'll be moving more smoothly. Okay, so now maybe you also want to trim the ending. So I'm zooming out with my scroll wheel. Get here to the end. And then you just select where you want them to end. I think we ask the musicians to wave at the end here. So like there. Control A and S for split, and then remove all the X's. And you could be done here. This might be it. There are other things you can add, and perhaps I will show you a few of those right now. You could add fades in and out to each little track by dragging this tiny little corner at the beginning of the track. All right. I'm gonna zoom in and go. If you click on your keyboard the key home, it will click here and then home. It will send you to, actually, never mind. You click here, go to start, control home. There you go. So this is the beginning of your timeline. And if you click this tiny little blue corner and you drag that, you can add a fade in. Okay. Let's add one that's 15, whatever parts of a second. Okay. I'm zooming in a little bit more. I'm going to do the same here. Drag that corner to 15. Drag the viola to 15 so they all fade in at the same time. 15, 15. Okay, and let's play that. All right, you won't see it well on the preview, but there it is. So they all fade in together. Now we can't hear the audio. It looks like I somehow accidentally deleted the whole audio. Maybe when I trim the end. So I'm just gonna Control Z my way back. There it is. Okay, Control Y. So sometimes things like this happen. So there it is again. I'll just click out of that and then click each excess individually here. And all right, there you go. So, well, what that means, unfortunately, is that what I did a little while ago with the fade outs was lost. But then we just do it again. 15. It's way too zoomed in. And 15. And 15. And 15. And 15. So there's our fade in now with audio. Now let's go to the end, and you can do the same and add a fade out. 15 too. It's I find that to be a long enough short fade to create the effect. All right, and let's watch the ending. Okay, so that might be it. You could maybe I'll do another video where I add titles and other things you can do with the video tiles, like scrolling and other things like that. But for now, let's say you're done. And what you do is you can click here where it says make movie. Click that. Save it to my hard drive is what I generally do. And then you should be able to just keep settings as they are here. Save it as a MOV file, or, you know, it really, I mean, in my experience, for my purposes, it doesn't really make a difference. So I'll just leave it there. Make sure you're saving, make sure you know where you're saving it. Okay, let's go here to our project folder. I'm going to create a new folder called Video Renders. Okay, yes, select folder and then give it a name, Hungarian Dance V1. And you click next, and there it is. So now it's rendering, and it's going to take a while, depending on the size of depending on the duration of your video and how many tracks the program is rendering. It might take anywhere from a few minutes to a few hours. Okay, so I am gonna let this render, and I will start a new video with a few other things you can do, like add titles, add images, add some scrolling and transitions, and more things probably. All right, so I hope that was useful.